Hi! This time I wanted to talk about experience points and leveling up in tabletop role-playing games. This is pretty common in many tabletop RPGs. You have your system where you obtain experience points or some sort of rank up points or whatever, something that allows you to grow in power and skills and anything related to the system, spells, psionic abilities. But I think there is a certain disagreement at times as to what they represent. For example, maybe you have seen that some people agree with the way that they are usually employed. You are successful in combat or in a particular skill check. Maybe you defeat an opponent. Like I said, maybe you accomplish some sort of task. And so you are rewarded with experience points or rank up points or whatever. But some could argue that it's much better to represent the acquisition of those experience points through failure. That is, when you attempt to do something and you fail at that, you are obtaining experience. Maybe you were unsuccessful, completely unsuccessful on your attempt, but you learned something from your mistakes. However, I am more inclined towards the former of obtaining experience points when you are actually successful for the following thing. You could do the same thing over and over again, and yes, pretty much suck at it constantly. But when you finally get it right, that's when you obtain experience points, in my opinion, because you finally understood the right way, the correct method. So that's where the true experience lies. All of those failures, the misses, all of those are kind of like taking steps towards that experience point acquisition. But that's just my take. I am basing this mostly on my own experience. I have done many things wrong, and when I actually got something right, I felt like I obtained something, and it was not like a level up moment, more like I obtained something from that. Now, let's talk about leveling up. I think this becomes even more complicated because different RPG systems have different methods or reasons as to how you can level up, when you can level up. In some RPGs, you level up immediately. You defeat an enemy, you obtain experience points, you level up, that's it. In other role-playing games, you need to rest, you need to go to the inn or to the hotel or whatever, and you need to sleep, and now you level up. Or maybe you need extra training, you need to spend some money on a trainer to improve your skills, abilities, etc. So it all depends on the type of system. As a rule of thumb, I would say that in more realistic settings, I think it's more advisable to move towards the training route. And in more superheroic or epic settings, it's much better to level up immediately. However, I think there is still a middle ground, and I will tell you why. Thinking back when I was just starting to learn how to use martial arts, there were many techniques and methods that I couldn't, or even, yeah, I could say, routines, sets, drills that I wasn't able to do because I simply didn't have the physical condition. The body was still too sticky, if that makes sense. You know, when the antagonistic muscles, they aren't loose enough. Your wrists, your knees, everything, it feels a bit like sticky, slow, rubbery in the more negative connotation, so you feel very clumsy when attempting to do anything, especially when it comes to some jumping methods, which you're not usually accustomed to doing, like let's do a fan kick while you jump in the air and attack from behind, things like that. You are terrible at it in the first attempts, at least in most cases. But as you keep on practicing and even doing other unrelated methods, your body becomes a bit more conditioned to the point that, for example, in current times, I never, and don't do this at home. This is just me. This is a big no-no for those that, under normal circumstances, want to train or anything. I actually never warm up. Never. And now a lot of people that do martial arts and other physical activities are going to be like, what? They're going to be face palming and all that. But the way that I have conditioned my body through different things, diet, the Wim Hof method, sun gazing, meditation, and just years and years of constant practice, I never warm up. I always go for it immediately. I want to train, okay, I'm going to do this and that, I'm going to do this kata, or if I want to do push-ups, sit-ups, anything. I never warm up, never. But like I said, this is, don't try this at home. Don't try it at home. This is just me. And I've been doing this without warming up for like, I've lost count on how many years I have spent training without warming up. But when it comes to my students, I always tell them to warm up, of course, because, well, you don't want them to hurt themselves. Yes, you want to follow the proper procedure. But for my own personal, when I train alone or with someone that is a bit more experienced, I never warm up. So some people could be thinking, in tabletop role-playing games, it doesn't make sense that your character doesn't know this technique, this feat, this power, this skill, and suddenly that character levels up. And now he or she is suddenly able to do this or that. I would argue that in my case, when I was trying to do those jumping kicks, of course, I would never use them in a real self-defense situation because I wouldn't be confident in my ability in that moment, in that particular moment in my training. I wasn't confident in employing them correctly. But eventually I got them right. And so I was confident in using them whenever they were needed. So I think the same thing happens when a character is away from town, away from trainers in the city or whatever, and suddenly you level up and now you can use the dragon kick or whatever. That makes sense in the character. Perhaps he knew the method because, like I said, I was taught how to do different techniques. I couldn't do them. I was taught the methods, the proper procedure, but I couldn't do them correctly. But eventually, I suddenly was able to do them after constant practice. So even if the character is not constantly doing some sort of kata style of training, the fighter, the barbarian, the paladin, the ranger, or the monk, of course, after many fights during the adventure, they feel a bit more loose, the body becomes stronger, better conditioned, and suddenly they are able to employ that move that they knew how to do, but they weren't capable of doing before. The same thing when it comes to weapon proficiencies. Maybe some character classes, or if you're using a point-buy system, etc. Now you are proficient in the use of a weapon. How is that possible? There is no one teaching you how to use that particular weapon. Maybe after understanding how to use more simple weapons, you take that knowledge and you translate that, or just make that transition towards more complex weapons. Like, for example, maybe a character is constantly fighting with sticks at first, a club or a fighting stick or whatever, and suddenly that character levels up and now you are proficient in the use of twin blades or something. That character now applies the techniques that he has learned while using sticks to an edged weapon. Or maybe that character's wrists have become more loose, agile, so he's able to flick his wrist in better ways than before if he's using now a rapier or something. Or the wrist itself became stronger, not so much that now you have a point in strength, because the strength that you gain in your wrist is just in that particular location. So now you are able to employ a weapon that you couldn't use before. So you can rationalize it like that. You don't need to be constantly trained by a specialist all the time. Maybe you already knew the basics and those basics were polished, and now you are able to use those new weapons when you level up, those new techniques, and so forth. So yes, it's all about the system, but also on what makes sense with the characters living through those death-defying experiences. This, of course, also applies to skills. Maybe your character is specializing in something related to science. This doesn't mean that the character suddenly starts to learn things from out of nowhere. Well, it depends on the setting, right? Maybe the character is mystically connected to this sort of archive, and suddenly he gets this knowledge downloaded into his brain or something. But in most situations, maybe your character, you started out as this character that is a specialist in any field of science, you have read the books, you have been tutored or mentored, you have carried out your experiments, but there was always something missing about a particular method or theory or the like. So maybe let's say that you are thinking, you level up, your character levels up, and you are thinking, I was thinking on solving this equation, taking this as the cause and this as the effect. But what if it's the other way around, and the cause is the effect and the effect is the cause? So now you level up, and that's why you are more proficient in your skill of science, or you obtain some feat related to that. So yes, I would say that you always keep an open mind when it comes to organic growth. Maybe your character has been taught everything that he or she needs to know. That character has been given the keys to the knowledge pertaining to a particular class, or in a point-buy system to that particular skill set. So it's easy enough to rationalize things. It's all about what you are looking for, the type of RPG that you are playing, the setting, and the like. So I hope you found this video entertaining and useful. Let me know your thoughts on obtaining experience points, leveling up. Do you think that it's better to obtain experience points when you are successful at something, or when you fail? Or maybe a combination of both. Maybe you could fail and obtain a bit of experience points. That's another way of handling things. And also about leveling up. Do you think this way of obtaining spells, powers, feats, do you think it's logical? In the case of wizards or spellcasters, they suddenly learn new spells. How is that possible? Again, maybe they read about this spell in the past and they didn't understand how to use it. Very powerful spell. But because they have been using lower level or lower tier spells, they suddenly realize the foundations of the more complex spells. And now I understand how to cast this spell that was too complicated before. It could be like that. Well, thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.